Well. We're back. It's another live stream. Round 5, done and dusted. And 2 very disappointed Pressure Point co-hosts.
Yes, it's always hard to front up when your team puts on a terrible performance like both our teams did on the weekend, and it's quite rare since we've done this since we started the Pressure Point that both our teams have put in pretty terrible performances on the weekend. So it's usually one or the other, but it's both this time.
Yeah, exactly right. Like you said, normally one or the other, and one gets to poke fun at the other one. And I remember thinking after the Carlton game, I said, well, at least we're not going to be that bad. And then we came out the next night and almost did the identical thing. I thought, oh, wow, I shouldn't have spoken too soon. But, we won't vent too much about our individual teams. For that, you have to go to our individual channels, won't they?
Correct. And they're in our – you can see them down below there. Make sure you give them both a follow if you want to see some pure fan content for those respective teams.
Absolutely. So jump down for those Richmond supporters. Tiger Den video will be out tonight, so jump on board. But we'll get into the round. It was the inaugural gather round, and safe to say it was a success. The AFL did really well. I think the state of South Australia did a really, really good job, and it was really cool. I mean, you saw fans traveling from all over the country. Footy influencers were everywhere. Like, it was just a big buzz around South Australia, and personally, I'm disappointed I couldn't get there myself.
Yeah, it was fantastic. So good that they signed on for another 3 years while it was happening. So it was crazy. But yeah, I absolutely loved it. I don't know why we haven't done something like this before. It was so good, and I think to see games at suburban grounds as well was great. And Norwood Oval put on a really good show with those 2 games there. I just like the tight little atmospheres, the smaller crowds. I feel like it's better than seeing like empty seats and empty grandstands. So that was really good. But yeah, I loved it. Adelaide's obviously a massive footy town, so I'm glad that they've got it for another 3 years. But let's just hope. For me, I think the only change I would make is to put the showdown in the gather round. I think that would be massive. If it already isn't, it would increase it even more. But apart from that, it was fantastic.
Yeah, 100%. I think the only argument I'd potentially have for the showdown, and I agree with you, by the way, but someone pointed out to me that the only argument they might have is that with the games being separate, Adelaide and Port playing in separate games, there's 2 games you're going to get South Australians packing the house out rather than one really big one. But from what we saw this year, every game was pretty much sold. It was actually every game was sold out. So I think if we had the showdown as one game, it would be a great idea. And by the looks of it, all the other games would sell out anyway. So yeah, I would absolutely love to see that happen.
Well, if the showdown kicked off a gather round, that would be good. Because like with the gather round coming in, every team gets an extra game for the season, which means Adelaide and Port Adelaide get an extra home game. So I don't know. It's and then yeah, teams like Carlton and the Bulldogs had to play them, while everyone else gets to play a neutral team in Adelaide. So I don't know. I think it would just make sense if the showdown was on gather round.
Yeah, no, I think the spectacle around it too would be amazing. Like, the hype around the showdown is big already in South Australia, but if you've got people from all over the country even more invested this time around, and you get people traveling and coming to the game, I think it would blow it up. And whether you had it as the first game to open the week or you had it to close the week as the last game, I wouldn't mind that either, because you're always in for a classic with an Adelaide versus Port showdown. So that'd be great. But what were some of your key takeaways from the weekend? Things you saw in games, Blues aside, I know you weren't happy with them, but what did you see that really caught your eye?
Well, we can start with the Blues game because I don't want to talk about Carlton. I'll talk about Adelaide, and if they're not the real deal, they're very close to being, I think. Their form so far this season has been fantastic, and everything just came together for them on Thursday night. They were insane how good they were. As bad as Carlton were, I think Adelaide were equally as good. And they've got some absolute weapons, and their forward line's clicking with Big Texan and Darcy Fogarty and Isaac Rankin. Like, they've got a pretty dangerous forward line, and then you got Jordan Dawson, Rory Laird through the midfield, absolutely dominating. So they've got a really good mix, Adelaide, and I think a lot of people have underrated them heading into the season. And if they continue playing like that, they're going to be hard to stop.
That's it. I think the biggest thing with them is how underrated they've been going into the year, and especially from what we saw from them last season. So pretty much to summarize everything you said, just seeing them come out this year and really have some standout games. I mean, even when they did lose over in Adelaide to the Tigers, that they had that third quarter where their resurgence was that strong. And I reckon the only reason they dipped off was because the week before they played in about 34-degree heat and had a 5 or 6 day break. So they really didn't have much favouring them in that period of time. So I just reckon I'm really impressed with what I've seen so far from the Crows.
Yeah, no, they're fantastic. As hard as it was for me to watch the game on Thursday night, because Carlton were atrocious, but Adelaide were very impressive. And I mean, with Jordan Dawson as their captain now, I think he's probably, or I think he's definitely in All Australian calculations right now, and he'd be a shout for All Australian captain if he keeps this up. So he's been huge, and Rory Laird just gets the job done without any fuss. So yeah, they've got a good mix, and for me, they feel different to like the 2016, 2017 Adelaide. I think this group's a little bit more exciting, and they probably play a better brand. So I think everyone's sort of getting around the crom.
Which is a weird thing to say. It's funny when Melbourne supporters are even appreciating and enjoying watching them play whatever brand of football it is that they're playing at the moment. It's hard to describe, but it is exciting to watch, and it's going to be exciting seeing them all year round, go in and out. But you move over to the other Adelaide team, Port Adelaide. We'll speak about them while we're on the topic of South Australian sides, and they were pretty impressive themselves.
They were. That game was played in horrible conditions. I think it rained for the entirety of the match. It was really tough to play in. But the Doggies looked like they were going to win that. They were in winning position. They looked like they had the game under control. But I think there was a couple of key mistakes there which Port Adelaide pounced on and ended up getting the win. But that was anyone's game for a long time there. So, but great for the city and for both Adelaide teams to win was huge for gather round. So, Port's another one. They've had a really tough start to the year in terms of who they've played, and they've come out 3-2. So they've done pretty well, and their draw will only get easier, and they should definitely be in the top 8 hunt.
Well, speaking of the rain that you talked about, I'm really impressed with not only Adelaide Oval, but all the other ovals as well, that they actually held up quite well considering the large amount of traffic that was on them throughout the period of the week. I mean, we saw double headers both at Adelaide Oval back to back, and the fact that the ground wasn't too chopped up or too worn in was really impressive. So shout out to the groundskeepers there at Adelaide Oval and all the other suburban grounds, because I thought they held up really well, and it put on a spectacle for everybody.
Well, they held up a lot better than what Metricon held up during the lockdown and the hub years, didn't they? I remember Metricon got absolutely chopped up those years. So for Adelaide Oval to withstand all the rain and the back-to-back games, they did very well.
Yeah, 100%. They did. It was testament to the people that put in all the work around the grounds and all that, because I know it's not easy stuff to do. But we'll keep moving on because there was plenty to talk about. And I think one of the biggest talking points, and it was an absolute shock for me, I was playing football on the Saturday. I finished my game, went to the rooms, checked the AFL app, and to say I nearly fell over when I saw that Essendon beat Melbourne would be an understatement. That has to be the upset of the round. And Bomber supporters, rightfully so, would be up and about right now, would they not?
Absolutely. I think a few of them have cancelled their September plans already. Their lid is off at Bomberland. That was the upset of the season so far, I'd say. No one saw that coming. Everyone thought Melbourne was pretty much unbeatable. So for the Bombers to do that was huge, and they did it with some style as well. Look at Sammy Draper just absolutely dominating. Darcy Parish is looking back to his best as well. Like they were seriously impressive to watch, and who knows what the Bombers can do this year? Whether it's just a really good start or whether they continue this on and potentially play finals. So it's a big one. Not a lot of people wrote him off, including you. I think you had him for the wooden spoon, so you might be eating humble pie yet again.
I'm tipping Richmond for the wooden spoon next year, because last year I said Collingwood, this year I said Essendon, and both have proven me very, very wrong. So I'm going to tip the Tigers next year. But we did put out a little thing on Instagram before recording today, just getting people to send in questions that they had, and a lot of them were directed towards Richmond, but there's an Essendon-related one here, despite it still being slightly about Richmond. But Ryan Cunningham has sent in, why is Essendon so much better than Richmond? And I couldn't answer that question. It's I never thought I'd be saying this, but I have no idea why Essendon is playing so much better football at the moment. But hats off to them because they're playing a like you said. I think for the first time in a while, Essendon look like they've got a brand, a bit of identity about themselves on the football field, and probably testament to the coach as well. But they've just been playing some great football, and it's exciting. And their players are all lifting all over the ground, like you mentioned earlier.
Yeah, absolutely. I think they do have a lot of talent in that list. It just wasn't coming together for them, and it looks like Brad Scott's getting the best out of those players as well. And you even look at someone like Cole Langford, who's swung forward this year and done really well. And even Andrew Phillips is doing really well as a backup ruckman. So it's these sort of players that are lifting them up at the moment. So yeah, it is quite impressive. Credit where credit's due. We like to give Essendon a lot of shit on here, but yeah, they're doing some good stuff, and it sets up a massive Anzac Day clash next week against the Pies. So that's going to be the biggest Anzac Day game in a very long time.
It absolutely will be, but there will be some stars missing from that game if the tribunal hearings all go as expected. I believe we just found out that Taylor Adams will miss the next week, as well as Zach Merritt due to suspension. So two massive stars to miss the big game. And I mean, they kind of cancel each other out in a way. So no team's at a real disadvantage yet, but disappointing for not only them, but the fans as well. You won't see some of your best out there on the biggest stage of the year, the home and away year.
Pretty sure Essendon are challenging Zach Merritt's charge, so there's a chance he might get off.
And I think Collingwood are doing the same, to be fair.
Yeah, I think it's worth the punt for a game like Anzac Day. So we'll see what happens there. But yeah, and I'll talk about Collingwood. They've really got no ruckman. They don't even have backup ruckman now, with McStay hurting his finger. So they're in a world of hurt with their ruck position.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, though, we say that, and you say that it's hard to win games of football, but they came out against the undefeated St Kilda on the weekend, and I don't want to say comfortably, but towards the end, they sort of broke away and made it look like it was relatively easy, but they made light work of them in that last quarter. And without a ruckman as well, it's such a hard thing to do, but I think they're going to be fine without them. They're making do with the blokes like Ash Johnson jumping in there. He's got hops like no tomorrow. So I think they're really finding a great way to work around it until they can get some of their cavalry back.
Well, yeah, this is what Collingwood's been really good at over the last 12 months, haven't they? They find wins when you really don't expect them to, and when all the stats suggest that they shouldn't be winning, they do. So hats off to them. They're another really impressive team, and that was it was a very different game to what we expected, that Collingwood Saints game. I think everyone expected it to be a fast-paced, free-flowing game, but it turned into a real arm wrestle, really defensive, classic Ross Lyon kind of game, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, I think he really brought his style into it. And I think it's the only real way to stop Collingwood, isn't it? Is to play that real defensive style, slow them down, stop the passage of play. And I know I said it looked like Collingwood got the job done quite comfortably, but it was only a 6-point margin. I think it just felt a little bit different watching that last quarter. But Saints did come back with a couple of late goals and make the margin a lot smaller than it was. But I think for the first 3 quarters anyway, Ross Lyon did a great job of slowing Collingwood's passages of play down, stopping that run through the middle of the ground, compared to what we've seen in other weeks.
Yeah, for sure. So I don't think that changes anyone's opinion about the Saints at the moment. They still put in a good game, and they've got another big game next week against the Blues. So it'll really test to see where they're at as well. But yeah, I think the Saints they've lost no fans from that game. They were still really good, and looks like their footy's going to stack up if they continue with it. So, but yeah, no, good contest yesterday at Adelaide Oval, and I think we spoke about it last week that people wanted to move that to the MCG. I still find that absolutely farcical. So, but it was a good game of footy.
I can understand the argument behind it in the sense that it's a blockbuster game, 2 Melbourne clubs. You want that played where as many fans can get there as possible, but you got to be realistic. That game would not have been a headliner 6 months ago when the fixtures were being made up, and you're not changing games last minute because a team's doing better than expected. That's never going to happen. So the fact that people suggested it was a bit outrageous, even though I can kind of understand where they were coming from. But it's exciting at the moment. Like you said, you've got teams like St Kilda who are probably breaking all expectations. Adelaide's doing the same thing. Essendon's doing the same thing. All these underrated clubs are starting to come up now and show that they can stack it. Their football stacks up against some of the best, and they're proving to be some of the best in the comp too.
Yeah, 100%. So exciting to see what they can do. Shall we talk about your Tigers? I know there was a few comments about the Tigers that we should probably read out and get your thoughts on it as well.
Well, I'll read out a couple of comments. We had one here from Dom. Are the Tigers done for the year? And then there was another one from the great Ashman. Why have Richmond lost the ability to play in the wet? And I can't answer either of those questions. I say, why have Richmond lost their ability to play in the wet? From what I saw, it's just the skill errors. They're not good enough. Some of the ones the mistakes that they're making just aren't up to scratch. We do have about 8 players that I think have played less than 20 games. So I reckon the inexperience in the side definitely hurts us at the moment. And these guys that weren't used to that game style that we've had for the last 4 or 5 years that made us really successful, I think they haven't quite adapted or gelled to that yet. And it really shows. And then in terms of other Tigers done for the year, it's a real hard place to come back from, isn't it? I mean, even if we got everybody back this week, it's a tough place to come back from. So who knows? It's a long season, but we'll wait and see how that pans out. But in terms of the game itself, as much as I'd love to rave and rant about Richmond, it's hard to look past Tom Papley's performance in the last half, mind you, with 6 goals. I mean, he's an outstanding player, one of the best celebrators in the comp as well, as Brian Taylor had to point out about 25 times for some reason. And just proving Damien Hardwick's point that the broadcast isn't that flash, but he is, though. He is one of the better celebrators in the league, and he really gets his team up and going.
Yeah, he does. But yeah, you hate it when it's against your team, don't you? When he's carrying on like that, it just really gets to you. But as a neutral, it's great to watch. I love his passion, and yeah, I think that was the highest rated game by player this season. So he was absolutely on fire.
Yeah, which, I mean, at the time I was very salty, and maybe I still am a little bit, but very interesting that a guy who kicked 4 out of his 6 goals just at the back, uncontested, was one of the highest rating games of the year. But anyway, we won't dive into that too much. But I'm just probably a little bit salty about him, tearing us apart, because despite the fact that he did kick a lot of uncontested at the back goals, we weren't learning from our mistakes, and people weren't manning up on him or keeping him accountable. And that just goes to show his footy smarts, I guess. So, I kind of backfired my own argument there a little bit. But, yeah, he's an absolute star. And Sydney did a great job to get the win. They really had no big man up forward. I think Logan McDonald was their only tall. They had an injury in the first quarter. Buddy obviously wasn't playing. So they really had – I mean, I know Richmond had injuries too, but Sydney were really looking down and out at one point. Dane Rampy didn't play. And it was a real opportunity for Richmond's forward line to sort of get the one up on them, and they just couldn't seem to do that. But in saying that, I thought Jack Rewalt was really impressive with his 4 goals and a big split to the side of the temple.
Yeah, that was crazy, wasn't it? The vision of him running off the ground with that, that looked way worse than what it was.
Well, it did. In saying that, though, you look now at the stitches, and he's got about 6 staples in the side of his head, so it still doesn't look pretty even now. But yeah, absolutely, it was a bit reminiscent of Francis Burke coming off again Arden Street against North, running out like that. So yeah, it was not a great game for Richmond supporters, but Swans fans will be happy. They bounced back, and they really blew us out of the water. I think there was only 7 points in it, or a goal in it, or whatever it was at 3/4 time, and then they beat us by 50 odd, I think, or 40 odd, whatever it was. So it's the first time in over a year Richmond have lost by more than 12 or 14 points, I think it is. So it's not good times for Tiger supporters at the moment, considering we've broken these sorts of unwanted records. And as Yanni said, great Richmond man, don't worry about the Tigers. It's all about the Lakers, who did get a good win today in the playoffs, their first win against the Grizzlies. So, yeah, if we keep playing like this, I might start putting my Lakers scarf on.
Well, the Richmond players weren't too upset about Friday night, I don't think. They were all out and about on Chapel Street on Saturday.
I did see a message. Yeah, I did see him. I was disappointed. I thought I got home. I'm like, you beauty. I'm in bed. I'm ready to tuck in for the night. I get a message from you. Look over, check the phone, and it's a photo of Timmy Taranto. Biggie Newen, I think, was in the background there as well. And I thought, oh, you are kidding me. I should have followed you out. In saying that, I really, what would I have said or done? I wouldn't have. I would have just sat there and cowered away and not said anything to him. As much as I'd love them to be at home and getting prepared for the next week of football, because it's Anzac Day Eve against the D's next week. So, they're always going to go out and have a good time. So it was disappointing I missed out on that.
Yeah, it was good to see him, because I knew that would grind your gears after a bad loss.
And it was a bad loss. What else, Marcus? What else caught your eye? There's a lot that happened over the weekend. Geelong came back, 2 strong wins in a row.
Who's that? Sorry,
Geelong.
Oh, Geelong. Yeah. Well, they did the same as what they did to Hawthorn, wasn't it? They had that massive run of goals, which just absolutely killed the game, didn't it? Like they were just super. I think West Coast kicked the first 2 goals of the game, and then Geelong just went on an absolute run, like they did against Hawthorn, and tore the game apart. So, yeah, like it's hard to read into because like are Geelong back, or have they just smashed Hawthorn and West Coast, arguably the 2 worst teams in it?
Well, I think they're doing a bit of that, beating up on the bottom teams. But it's a way, like Patrick Dangerfield spoke about the fact they'd lost a lot of confidence. So if there's any way to get your confidence back, it's to come out and absolutely obliterate sides like they just did. So I think they are back. I reckon it'll be a good test when they come up against better opposition. But it's hard to say that Geelong were written off to begin with before these 2 big wins. I think it would be silly to completely write them off. So it'll be good to watch Geelong in the next few weeks and see who they come up against and how they play against some better quality sides. But as we quickly skip past to the comments in regards to our Richmond conversation, the mighty Tigs out on Chapel blowing off steam. Love to see it. Oh, they needed to blow something off, that's for sure, because they weren't too flash on the weekend. But the other game I want to quickly talk about before we finish with some of the reviews is the Fremantle Gold Coast game. And this really came down to the wire, and Freo almost came out of nowhere a little bit there and got the win, didn't they?
They really needed that Freo. I think if they dropped that, you could probably not write them off completely for the year, but it would have been very tough for them. I think. I think just with the way Freo play their game style as well, it would have been tough to come back from 1-4. But yeah, they just had to do it, and it raises more questions about the Gold Coast, doesn't it? Like, what are they doing? Where are they going? Seriously.
Yeah, I think we speak about this most weeks, but just I think the fact that they're in the Gold Coast and they're sort of away from that football hub and the community almost, if you will, it really goes under the radar how poorly they're actually doing. And I think it's not getting talked about enough compared to some other teams from Melbourne and, even West Coast over in WA, they get spoken about a lot too, not performing as well as they should. And the Suns are really flying under the radar. If they had got this, it would have been a great win for them because it was a close game. It was tough conditions and they really fought it out. But again, they've lost it. They've let Freo come back into the game. And it was really all Gold Coast game to win that one. So for Freo to come back and pinch out is big for them. And who knows, does it kickstart Freo's season? Like I know you said you can't completely write them off, but does it kickstart the rest of their season now? They've got a bit more confidence, a big win away from home. Who knows? It's going to be a lot to look into. But yeah, still disappointing from the Suns, like you mentioned.
Yeah, I think, I don't think it's, I don't know. I feel like the winner of that, it doesn't really matter too much with their season. I think everyone's probably written them off a little bit in terms of whether they can make the top 8 or not. We're going to probably have to see a little bit more from Freo, but some of their better players stood up. Like Caleb Sarong's been huge for them this year. He's probably been their shining light, and he was dominant on the weekend. So I don't know. We'll see. Just Freo, just a team that they don't score a lot, so it's going to be hard for them to properly impress everyone. So they're just going to have to bank some wins, I think, and get them where they can, like they did on the weekend.
Yeah, 100%. I think their forward line is probably undersized, a little bit undermanned, if you will. I think Taberner's probably not in the form that Freo and the rest of the AFL community would expect him to be in. So there's plenty to work with there, obviously, but I think it's just trying to put everything together, all the puzzle pieces, and kickstart their season from there. So it's going to be a long year for Freo, I feel, but it could still be a successful one. Who knows?
Yeah, 100%. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, I think the Gold Coast, I think there was talk on the radio this morning that the AFL are seriously looking into them, not in terms of, getting rid of them, but just like they need help. Something's not right there. Like, what are they? They're 12, 13 years in now. Like,
but how much can we help them?
No, but like something, whether they, I don't know, whether you turn them into Tasmania.
That's not really helping them, is it? It's just relocating and rebranding. I guess it's just starting a new club altogether. It's not necessarily helping the Gold Coast's image. And we've seen other codes try and start teams in the Gold Coast, and it stereotypically doesn't work up there. So for the Suns to last as long as they have has been impressive. But in saying that, they're really just holding on, aren't they, every year? So it's going to be a long watch, waiting to see what happens. Personally, I'd love to see the AFL and the Suns persevere and get through this. Like, imagine if Gold Coast win a flag one day. Like, it'd be, not that it'd be crazy fans wise, because they've probably only got about 5 of them, but just for the AFL world to see finally like they've found some success and done something good, it would be quite the spectacle. But it's really such a stretch to see that happening, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't know. I think everyone thought this year was the year that they'd finally make finals, but I don't know. They don't look like it. They were good against Geelong with their win for the year, but I don't know. They again, they're like Freo, where they just need to either start banking some wins or really finding another gear. So it's going to be tough for them. And yeah, I don't know. The aftermath of another season of no finals could be pretty tough. And I think the coach will be in trouble at the end of the year if they don't make finals or just finish in 11th, 12th like they always do. So who knows what's going to happen there?
Well, I mean, it's been the talking point for the last couple of years. Like, is his coaching position safe? And we always say no. And then they win a few games and you go, oh, maybe he's on the right track. And I feel like, this has to be the year. I mean, how long can you persevere with someone at the head of the table? I love Stuart Dew personally. I think I love him up there. I reckon the culture he brings to the club, it's all looking good, but something needs to change. And unfortunately, sometimes the head needs to be chopped off. And if that's Stuart Dew, then that might have to be the case, because it could be the difference between, losing an actual club in the AFL and keeping it. So
yeah,
it's going to be, like I said, a long way.
100%. Speaking of clubs that are struggling a little bit at the moment, I'll tell you what, the honeymoon period at North Melbourne is officially over.
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to say a 75-point loss to the Brisbane Lions is...
Did you see how many points they conceded to turnovers?
No, I saw it was a lot, but do you have an exact number for the viewers?
I think it was 116 points conceded from turnovers, which is outrageous. I think that's a record, if not in like the top 3 or 5 record of all time from scores from turnovers, which is that's amateur stuff. Like, you can't be turning it over that much or conceding goals that much from turnovers. But at the same time, Brisbane were absolutely lethal when it came to that. They were all over them, and they made them pay literally with every turnover. So it was pretty crazy.
And that's the thing. We all, not that we doubted Brisbane would get the win here, but we've all sort of doubted their ability to play away from the Gabba. So to see them come over to a neutral venue and get a really big win like this, albeit against North, but still very impressive to see that Brisbane can play away from the Gabba. But yeah, like back to North, I think the honeymoon period's a perfect way to describe what they must have been going through, because to have that many turnovers, to allow a team to score that heavily, I think it was 22 goals, 20. Like, the Brisbane honestly could have kicked nearly 200 points if they kicked straight. Like, 20 points is a lot.
Yeah.
So they had to kick straight. They could have, kicked nearly 200 points to the game. So yeah, very, very disappointing from a North Melbourne point of view. But again, we know that they're an up-and-coming team, so who knows?
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, honeymoon period is over. I think all the people that were saying flag roos after 2 rounds can definitely be quiet now, because I think that is done. But I think before this week, everyone would say that they're definitely improved. I mean, there wasn't much, to really write about the last couple of years. So like, their improvement was always going to come, whether, small or large. So I think we can all agree that they're improving, but I think the romance of it's definitely starting to die off.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing they're improving is their culture and and just the way they go about their footy as well. Like, it seems like they're having a lot more fun out there as well. And obviously it's not always going to lead to good results like we saw on the weekend, but like you said, they're definitely on the right track, heading in the right direction. And I only see an upwards trajectory from North from here in the next few seasons going forward. So yeah, Exciting times for North fans, but also, again, like I said about a few other teams, it's going to be a long year.
Yeah. What else caught your eye on the weekend, mate? I think we've covered most games.
I'm just going through the fixtures here. We've pretty much covered every game. Oh, we didn't talk about another nail biter between the Giants and the Hawks, 77-75. And I didn't catch this game, to be honest, so I'm not going to try and pretend to know a lot about it. But just from all the commentary I've heard about it over the weekend, it was a thriller, obviously, with the score, with the margin only being 2 points. Did you manage to catch much of this one?
I did. It was actually a really good game of footy, surprisingly. I think this was probably the least attractive game of all of them, and it really was great. Thrilling finish. Harry Hilmerberg took one of the greatest marks you'll ever see, and then saved a goal right on the line as well. So he pretty much won in the game. Yeah. So that was good. And the Hawks, they're another team. They're improving. They're not as bad as what they probably were the first couple of rounds. So they've been riding in some games. So the Hawks actually, yeah, they played some good footy, and they almost should have won that, to be honest. They had their chances, and then they had a goal review late as well. So, but yeah, the Giants, came up clutch. Harry Himmelberg took a big grab, and Jesse Hogan played some good footy, although he did miss a goal late. But yeah, it was a good game of footy to watch. I don't know if there was a there was that tight small crowd atmosphere that really added to it, which I loved. It seemed really loud. A lot of Hawk supporters were there, so it was a good game to footy. So you definitely missed a good one there, and I'm surprised we left this to last because it was definitely a good one.
Well, yeah, I didn't want to talk too much about it, like I said, because I don't really know a lot about what happened during the game. I did see the Himmelberg mark, which, as you said, was very impressive. Came in clutch, so I'm gonna have to go back and watch the replay of that one. But it's annoyed me because this is the second game for the week now that's really ruined my tipping. I had the Hawks to beat the Giants, and to see them let that one slip hurt me. And I had the Suns to beat Freo as well on the upset, and to see them let that one slip hurt me as well. So I'm not doing too great in my my footy tipping at the moment, but we move on.
Yeah, well, we can give everyone an update on the pressure point tipping on the leaderboard.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you have that in front of you? And you're the stats man.
I think last week we had the Chens on top, but this week we've got James Hawks leading the way.
He was up and about on Saturday night about that fact as well. He was talking himself up how he was on top of the ladder. So good on Hawks.
No, he's doing well. So the top three, we've got Give Me the Dyson, which is James Hawks. Number 2, Chen 68. And number 3, Maggie Mandy. So they're all in the running for all our major prizes at the end of the year.
Absolutely. But it is still a long year. So for those of you that are part of the competition and maybe treading towards the bottom, there is still plenty of time to catch back up and hit the front. So don't be too down and out about it.
No, it just takes a few upsets and you're right back in it.
Absolutely. It's going to take some risks, which is it's always nerve-wracking, but you got to do it sometimes. But that's all good and well. We'll move on to my favorite segment of the week, the slap, because there's plenty that annoyed me this week, and I think what I'm about to show this week is probably a little bit unexpected. Oh, wow. Alrighty, so the obvious talking points for me would be Richmond's performance. I mean, that's probably it, really. It was just Richmond's performance, maybe Tom Papley's celebrations. There wasn't really too much that bothered me from Gather-Round. I think it was a pretty positive experience overall. I loved what we saw over in South Australia. We talked about it earlier, so I don't need to double touch on any of that. But I will go into this holding the ball decision. I'm steering down towards local football now. And for those of you that have a keen eye and a keen ear, you'll recognise those involved with this passage of play. So I'll show this one.
And the handball was not an effective one, and Elstonwick get the free kick, but they play advantage as he dragged it in. Is he going to get pinged? Here he is. It's a hot footy here.
Tough call there on De Luca, as it looked like Collins dragged that into him. But
now I'm glad the commentators were switched on here, because if that's holding the ball, gee whiz. These umpires, the poor umpiring decisions are filtering from the AFL all the way down to local level. Let me tell you, the commentator had a keen eye there. He saw that my opponent jumped on my back and dragged that ball in under me. I never took possession of that footy once. And I got pinged there holding the ball, and I had a shot from pretty much directly in front, which was, considering we lost by 8 points, it was a little bit disappointing. However, for those that are also feeling the injustice that was done here with this decision, I've got another video to show you that justice was served.
1 or 2.
If your forwards can't kick it, let the mids and defenders kick it. Why not?
A long way out, heavy ball.
Ranging half-back flanker is Ben Collins. He's kicked it into the man on the mark.
Yeah.
Suck eggs, mate. Suck eggs.
Oh, I love that. I haven't seen any of this yet. That's made my night.
What you deserve. That's what you deserve when you get cheap free kicks in front of goal. That you deserve nothing less than a touch on the mark. It rarely happens, but and with the shortest guy on the ground as well, you'd be pretty disappointed in yourself with that one. But I didn't want to show you before we recorded. I wanted to keep it fresh so I get your actual reaction to it. But that's definitely what caught my eye this week with the slap.
Yeah, very good, mate.
Umpire, by the way, it was to the umpire for those that missed out on that one. Yeah.
No, very good, De Luca, and love the shorts tucked in as well. Very good.
Well, I'll tell you what, this year I normally wear number 55 at Elstonwick, which is a very nice slim fit, fits the body well, makes the pipes look a little bit bigger than they are. And we've had a few people leave the club over the off season, and finally my favorite number 12, opened up, and I thought, you beauty, I've been waiting my whole life to play the number 12. So I snatched it first chance I could get. Little did I know it was an XL. And for those that know me, I'm definitely not an extra large. So the old tuck job was what I had to do. So if anyone knows how to shrink 100% polyester, let me know, because I'm going to try to do that in the next couple of weeks.
Oh, very good, very good. Well, speaking about clothes and sizing and everything like that, our merch is out. So it's been out for a couple of weeks now. Our new winter range. So make sure you head to pressurepointmedia.com.au and get yourself a hoodie or a sweatshirt. Keep yourself warm during winter, and not only that, but it helps support the channel as well. And it means a lot to us. So make sure you head there and buy something if you haven't yet.
Absolutely. And a big shout out as well to some of the people that have received their merch and are sending us photos and videos of them wearing it. And, absolutely loving it. I got a nice message today from Catherine. You know who you are. And photo of her in a new hoodie. And she was saying it was one of the most comfortable things she's worn in a long time. So greatly appreciate the support. So for those of you that feel like you're missing out, definitely do what Marcus said. Jump across to the website and pick up your winter merch.
Yep, 100%. And if you say you're going to get something, make sure you do.
Exactly. Keep your word. Keep to your word. So.
Keep your word, please, people.
Yeah, we love it. We love it. But we have a comment here before we start to wrap this up. We've got a comment popping through. Who's messaging through? James Hawks, tipping update, please. Well, Hawksy, you're about 2 minutes too late, mate.
You're too late, but because you're nice, we can give it to you again. So, tipping update is the name. James Hawks is in first place. I'm not sure if that's the same guy. Number 2, Chen68, and 3, Maggie Mandy. So that's the top 3 at the moment. And hope that solves your question.
I have a sneaky suspicion James Hawks knew the exact result of the tipping before he messaged that one. He just wanted a bit of an ego boost.
I think he got us hook, line, and sinker there.
Yeah, you fell right into his trap. You did. But that's pretty much it for another week of the Weekender. It was an amazing round 5, the inaugural gather round. It was exciting for pretty much all teams. Apart from ours, obviously, it was disappointing for both you and I, but it's another great week of football, and I think we can look forward to this happening again next year. Before we wrap up, as always, I want to thank our sponsor who brings this show to you guys, Gavos Freight Solutions, for all your freights and solutions needs. Definitely hit up Peter and the team, and all the information is below and in the captions. Hawksy as well. Thanks, guys. I'll be asking next week's too. Yeah, I bet you will. I bet you won't if you're not first in the ladder, though. So we'll see how next week pans out. But that's pretty much all for today, guys. Anything else you wanted to drop, Marcus, before we call it a day?
No, I think that's it. And massive week next week with Anzac Day and Anzac Eve. It's obviously a massive day for Australians and New Zealanders. So it's always a great time of the year to celebrate and remember the Anzac. So we'll be definitely enjoying those 2 big games as well that go with it.
Yeah, 100%. So that's it, everybody. If you're in the Pressure Point tipping competition, make sure to leave your tips. I've forgotten the tip for the Thursday night 2 weeks in a row now, so don't be like me. Make sure you get your tips in to give yourself every chance to win the big prize at the end of the year. But until next week, I hope you enjoy the Anzac round of football and all the big games we're going to be seeing. And until then, hope you enjoy your week of footy.